Hi, welcome back to the Writing Skills Seminar. It's me again. I hope you enjoyed watching part 3, Writing and Abstract. For this session, we're going to discuss on how to write a research article. Now, as usual, before we start, I would like to remind again that we might have different opinions. Therefore, just berlapang dada and agree to disagree. Now, this is the presentation outline. We have warm-up, and then I'm going to discuss about the main component of a research article, the guidelines in writing specific sections, formulating titles, common mistakes, proofread and English editing, as well as authorship and acknowledgement. The moment your supervisor asks you to write a paper, you will be like this person, very, very stressful. How to start writing? Well, you may get the idea to write by looking at 5 to 10 journal articles, which the work are close to yours. And remember, your main references should be from high-impact journals. Now, I would like to remind also, if you try to write all the sentences by yourself, then writing would be very difficult. So why make your life miserable? I like this quote by Stephen King. He mentioned that if you don't have time to read, you don't have the time or the tools to write simple as that. So, what you should do then? You should read and read and read as many research articles as possible. Now, let's look at the main component and flow of a journal. Now, let's look at the main components of a journal article. Generally, the main components are introduction, methodology, results and discussion. Unlike thesis, the introduction of a journal article covers the background, literature review, problem statement, research objective, and significance and applications. Now, of course, you have also to write the conclusion and the abstract for the journal article. Now, if you ask me which section to complete first, later on we'll discuss on this. Now, from the word vice, it tips how to captivate journal readers with a strong introduction. They propose the anatomy of a scientific paper. So if you can look there, in general, the paper must read likely a chronological story, which it will begin with point A, the introduction, and advance in time towards point B, means the discussion and the conclusion. So observe the anatomy of a scientific paper. For more information, you can visit here. Now, example of abstract, you may refer to part 3, the earlier slides, because I have presented quite lengthy, just focusing on how to write the. In general, okay, if you look at, I have discussed about the definition, the component of an abstract, structure of an abstract, the do's and don'ts, and also we look at sample abstract for review article. So if you need to look it again, you may look at part 3. Now, I start straight away to the journal introduction, how to write the journal. Now, the purpose of the introduction is actually, the introduction is a reader's first true interaction with the work. You know, the reader, the interact with your work is through your introduction. So, the introduction will establish the foundation upon which readers will approach the work. Like any other story, we must set a compelling stage that invites reader into our research world. So, if the introduction is not so compelling, then the reader might just stop reading. If you look at also at the structure there, we have the background, literature review, problem statement, research objective. Now the literature review and the problem statement, okay, this is the context we establish in the introduction, must first identify that there is a knowledge gap. So when we do the literature review, we come up with a knowledge gap, and then we explain how we intend to fill that gap and why. So this will confirm the novelty of your work, and this is very, very important. So for the introduction, it is recommended to be written in 2 stages, which is the first one is the draft. Okay, so you start with a skeletal introduction, okay, to clearly highlight the hypothesis, the questions, to your research answers, and after that you proceed with writing the main parts of the manuscript. Write the methodology, write the results and discussion, okay, and then you draw a rough conclusion. So once you finish writing, you complete writing the methodology, result discussion, then you go back to introduction section and you finalize your introduction section. Now for the literature review, usually this is what you need to highlight. The first one, when we do literature review, we want to highlight the research gap, and always remember to give a critical review, especially when you write for your thesis. Okay? Not just the chronology, but also the main thing, more important is that you come up with a critical review. And then you look at it for your thesis especially. Is all the topics covered? Is it comprehensive? What are the underlying theories? And then this also, from the research gap, it will become the justification for decision. For example, to what method you want to use, to which theory you want to use, you want to adapt to. So that is basically based on your literature review. And then look at the references. Okay, is the references reliable? So in the meaning of references is that you get your references from the high impact journals, okay? Not from a blog or just a website or just from words from the mouth. Okay? And your references must be fair, and also it must be recent, because if your references are not recent, then whatever gap that you are highlighting, the research gap you highlight, okay, is not actually recent. Say for example, if you want to say that this is the major problem, but the year is in 2005, right? Within these 15 years, someone might have tackled that problem. So it must be recent references. And what else? Yeah, you think what else this is all about? And we give the problem statement also. Ask yourself whether the problem is critical or not. Yeah? So if it's critical, that means the work is justified. It must be carried out. And also important to make sure that the problem statement is aligned to the research objective and the established research gap. Now, when you talk about the novelty, we can highlight it into 3 levels of novelty. The first one is you come up with a new theory or new equation or a new model. That's the highest hierarchy of the novel theory. For example, you come up with the Jamal's theory, or you come up with the Newton's law. The second level of novelty is you come up with a new method or new algorithm. You come up with a new product, new materials. And the lowest level of novelty is actually you just furnish new data. New data to accept or reject existing theory. So for journal article, it depends the level of the novelty of your work. As I mentioned earlier, you can refer to other papers published in that journal. You do the benchmark. So if you see that your work is as novel as that paper, that published paper, maybe you can send that paper there. So when you talk about novelty, what's the meaning of novelty? Novelty is a new kind, is innovative, is original, okay? It's a novel idea. So that is the meaning of novel. It's new and original. Now, these are the examples which I took from a real high-impact journals. Okay? You can see, you observe from these two extraction. You see from the first one, the first paper, can you see the research gap is telling there? Right. So it can say that obviously two problems exist in the previous research. Firstly, only qualitative results. So this sentence is trying to highlight the research gap and to come up with a problem statement. Okay, so as the second answer. So these are the kind of sentence in introduction where you want to highlight the research gap or the. Okay, this is another example. We can see from this the flow. The flow started with the literature review. For example, the sentence, the favorable composite impact properties have particularly been reported in these studies. So there's 4. So this is basically literature review. And from there, the flow, it starts to come up. Besides several advantages, the thermoset composite, for example, has brittle failure fracture. So they start to highlight the research gap. Okay, the limitation, poor cracking, failure behavior, So this is the research gap. And from that, they come up with a problem statement. And they finally, they formulate the research objective, the main objective of the work. So this is a very good example of the. Now this is another one also. If you look at here, you can see the flow from they are talking about the literature review, and then from the literature review they highlight the research gap, and they come up with a problem statement, and then you can see the objective there. Okay, the problem statements, for example, to the best of author's knowledge, there is no studies reported about reinforcing AP fibers into silicon rubber. Or this is the flow. Now for the objective, Bloom's taxonomy. Right. So that is the points you should ask when you are preparing. Okay, we can see the examples of the objective written in the journal. Okay, so you can see that. Alright, these are the words that you can use on how to write the sentence for the objective of a research article. For example, the main objective of the present work is to investigate the possibilities to optimize and tailor the properties and performance. Okay, and then the last one, the bottom one, this paper does investigates the swelling behavior. Right? So now let's look at methodology. Okay. The methodology section portrays the reasoning for the application. Means you're doing something, you're choosing the technique. Now here is where you want to give the reason why you choose that. We get to explain the rationale of the article. Okay, and then focus on answering these questions. When you want to write your methodology, focus on these questions. How did we collect the data? Or how did we generate the data? Which research methods did we use? Okay, for example, experiments, you have a standard ASTM, alright, certain ASTM for experiments, so you can mention that. And why did we choose this method and techniques? So this again reflect, okay, if you do a good literature review, it can give you the insight why do we choose this method, or you can explain again in the methodology. And then how did we use these methods for analyzing the research questions or problem? Okay, how we did use this method. So the responses to this question should be clear and precise, and the answer should be written in past tense. Okay, in past tense. Okay, the method section tells your reader when and where you conducted your research, and what basic parameters were put into place to ensure the relative objectivity of your results. Now, it should cover, in general, it's very important that your method section covers describing your methods, justifying your choice of methods, and connecting your methods to your research goals, in alignment. You may start by establishing your overall methodological approach, and then you may also provide background for uncommon methods. You may cite any sources that contributed to your choice of methodology and define how you collected or generated the data. Okay, you may ask yourself using these questions: does it cover 4M? Okay, because your methodology should be as detailed. A good methodology can be replicated by other researchers. So, did you mention the materials, method, machine, and man used clearly there? Is your methodology support your research objective? Means that by doing your methodology, your research methodology could be achieved. Are you using the appropriate data collection method? Are you measuring the right parameters and using the right tools? For example, if you want to measure the temperature, you will be using thermometer, not a ruler. So at this point of time, you cannot measure temperature using ruler unless you innovate. Your ruler can measure the temperature. And then your method should be replicable. Okay, so the details in an article and IPSis is quite different, because article usually there's a limitation of number of words. It can be up to 4,000, 5,000. Now for a thesis, you are required to write at least for masters 20,000 words, and for PhD 30,000 words for the SNT, for the SNT students. And then the details of two machines written there, put it in the methodology. So these are some of the example where you write the details of the tools or the machine there. If using MATLAB, version. If using Policy Stacking Manager, which version? Okay, if you use a camera system, which version? Okay, this is you should mention in your methodology. You describe it clearly into your methodology, so that if people using another different software or tools, they might get different. Okay, so this is from the example. The example which I took from Impactful Journal, talking about 3.1, the data processing. First, your example that all this is written in the third person past tense. Third person past tense. Data were obtained, were set, were prepared. Okay, and then you have this using standardization. Okay, if you look here, I highlighted the number 31 and 47, the references, citation 31 and 47. This is the citation and the references. This sentence is actually to show that these actions are based on other study or previous decision. This is to give the rationale of why you're doing that method that way. It portrays the reasoning for the application. So this is one of a good example. One of the good example of writing. Of course, it's a good example because this is from a high. Okay, this is another one that I want to highlight, which also from a high impact journal. Is talking about to include the make, model, year, license. So it's talking about the benchtop micro city. So it gives you the version. Okay, and the software, when they use the software, simple commercial software, also they give you the okay. You can look at this example and make it help you in writing the sentences for your methodology. This is another example also. Okay, so it's simple as that. Okay, you can see the first sentence: preparation of 5 group of experimental silicon isomers were the same as is the previous study 11. So that is the justification, that is the reasoning. And also in the case like this, that means that you do not have to explain so much, because if someone wants to really look the details of this, they should read the previous study, the reference number 11. Other than that, also the words using what was mixed, specimens were cut, and also it shows the details of the tools or the machine. Okay, So this is another example. Now for FEA, I took this example also from high impact journal. You can see that usually for FEA, you have to write the description of the model. For example, here unique thickness 3D solid. Okay. And then the element types. For in this case, the model is meshed with elements of wedge type C3D6. Now the number of elements, okay, because when you're using finite element analysis, the number of the elements sometimes could affect your results or the output. For example, the displacement of the stresses value, if you use less elements, sometimes it will give you different answer. So it's good here also that you mention clearly the number of the elements. The other thing that the author just want to show that they are using a lot of elements here. You can see here they use up to 200,000 elements, and they're using this. So the total of number of elements here you can see is like 500,000. It's almost 500,000. It's about almost 500,000 elements. So the model is very, very comprehensive. Okay, and then there's a sentence also stating the scope and limitation, where it's put there that all loads are applied in plane. So this is the scope and limitation of the work. It's clear. Now for 2.2, the first sentence, a single aligned fiber model was considered to allow direct comparison, and the direct comparison is reference number 742. This is to show the justification why the author used a simple aligned fiber model. And also it's written there, the fiber matrix was selected to match the dimensionless parameter in 42. This is also the justification. So this is an example of how to write a good sentences for the methodology. Now, other than that, you can observe the whole paragraphs. Okay, you may also put the purchase information. For example, here is clearly written that the AP fibers were purchased. What are the companies? Because some perhaps other researchers, they also want to purchase the same material. Okay, so if you put there, and sometimes if they're using a different natural fiber from elsewhere, from different forming place, they will give slightly different results. So that is the rationale why you mention where you purchase or where you get the materials from. Now, when this is the connection between the methodology and results and discussion. So if you look here, the titles, in order for you to make a good alignment, you observe this table. On the left is given the methodology, and the right side is written about the result discussion. Okay, so the methodology, the title, it should reflecting actions. It reflect actions. Okay, where else the result discussion in the title for the result discussion, it should reflect the outputs or the outcomes. So if you look here, this is the real title. I take it from a journal. So if you look here, 2.0 methodology, it has separate the title into materials. 2.2 specimen preparation, 2.3 swelling test, and 2.4 morphological analysis. If you look here, the materials, the specimen fabrication, swelling test, the final outcomes will be the results is showing the swelling behavior or swelling characteristics or swelling properties. So these three is actually aligned to this. The methodology aligns to this result. So for morphological analysis, the word is analysis, is showing actions. Now for 3.2, the one is aligned to it is the morphological characteristics. Right? So then, okay, more examples about for if you want to select the title. If you use the temporal compressive test in the methodology, then for the result discussion you use the compressive properties. Finite element modeling and simulation, you can put that simulated or computational results. For numerical analysis, okay, it can be suggested that you put the topic as numerical results, or you can put the results from numerical analysis. And also material characterization in the methodology referring to the action, and the results here is a materials behavior or materials characteristics. So by doing this, you can align between the titles of the methodology and the results and the. Now looks at the sentences that we use. So this is again, I took it from the journals, the reference. So 3.3 here you can see, okay. Therefore, only the results of sodium, ammonium, and nitrate are presented in figure 6.8. So these sentences in the green is actually referring to the results. And from the results, it can be seen that the increase in engine speed or load causes increase in all the tested ions. So these sentences, this is the result. This is talking about the trend. So from the results, okay, we can highlight the output or the trends. The output, the trends. Okay, which you can highlight it to become a finding. So once you have the results, you may say that is the results okay or not? Is the trend or the findings okay or not? Okay. In simple words, what is obvious from the graph or from the tables, that is the results, is obvious. Now from the results and the findings, then you discuss whether it's okay, the result or the trend finding is okay. Okay. So okay, we look again here. This is the discussion. The finding that increase in engine speed or load causes increase in all tested ions. So therefore, is the results, trend or findings is okay or not? Okay. So you have to support then findings and support. So some studies also found that the increase in engine load led to reduction in WSOC. Right. So this is the sample sentence showing support to your finding or the trend of your results. Other than that, another example is the second sentence from below. You can see that which are in line with other studies. Which are in line in other studies. This supports your finding. That means your finding is similar to other studies. And also, you can see that it's available in the previous publication. Okay. Okay. If you want to put more information, then you don't want to describe so much things, you can also say that part of the work, whether it's yours, is available in the previous publication. So for the readers who wants to get more information about it, they should go to read this publication. In this case, is the publication number, a reference number. Okay. These are the example for work related to finite element analysis or computational. You can see that. So the word figures 5 shows. This is showing the results. And then from the results, okay, it shows the explanation. This is a good also a good thing if you put in your paper, where from the graph, okay, you explain about the graph. And in this case, the curve above the dash line are the stresses in the fibers, and stresses below the dash line are the stresses in the matrix. So it's very good, because sometimes if you just simply give your graph without explaining it, some people might not really understand what the graph shows. And from that, it shows you the results here. The results show that is seen to be 1.39 times higher. So this is the results. Okay, this is a sentence showing the results. Okay, another example is the round 1 microscopic observation analysis. Okay, look at the last sentence. These are commonly referred to as pull-out failures. So this is the reason or the justification and is supported by previous work. And usually these failures are caused by failure of the fiber to matrix interface. So, right? So this is the reason or justification, for your results. Okay, this is another example. So you can see for the first one is a trend. Pure silicon rubber exhibit the highest toluene uptake. So that is the results. And then they show that a gradual increase of filler, gradual increase, that is the trend. Okay, that is the trend. Now what? So it also said that a similar finding has been discussed by Jevers L. So it's been supported that the results or the finding or the trend is good, or is acceptable because a similar finding has been discussed by Jevers. Now, when we put here the word here swelling rate, you put here increase or reduce the swelling rate. The swelling rate is number, is value, is mathematics. Okay. Now the real effect is on the permeability. So it's also thus reducing its permeability. The permeability here is the physical properties or the physics. So this is very good also, the way the results is discussed, because it's relate the mathematics and the physics, the real thing, the physical condition. Now the next sentence, the cause of fiber, you can see that could be due to the weak intermolecular. So the could be due weak molecular as previously explained by 20. So again, this is the reason, or you're giving justification and you support by a previous study, alright, by another researcher. Okay, and also to support a finding and support, also you can put that these sentences, a similar finding has been reported by Barahman et al. Okay, number 22. So this is good also. This is how you write the sentences in order for you to support your. So for the results and discussion section, you ask this question. Okay, are you presenting the results using the right graph? Are you the presented right parameters? Okay, make sure you have your unit, because in the graph sometimes you forget to put the units. Units is very important, especially in science and technological work. Is the correct data interpretation? Okay, the data interpreted, is it correct? In general, the results are obvious. Yes. So the sentences explaining the result, they are the obvious thing you can see on the graph. Now whether the results are good or not, we compare to others. So these are actually the findings. So are your findings are supported by the result of others? Do you do results validation? Do you do some basic statistics to show that your results are correct? Okay, because you recalculate or you ask your co-auditors to recalculate this. So these are some of the questions that you might ask when you have completed or you preparing your result in this discussion section. Okay. Okay, if you take from the thesis, this is the analysis and interpretation of results. These are the explanation about analysis and interpretation of results. I want to show more of the discussion. Okay, so as written by MIT Education, a group lab in MIT. Okay, the purpose of discussion is that you share what you think your results mean. Okay, so the introduction. Okay, the introduction section and discussion are natural partners, where the introduction part of your article is actually telling the main question about the study and why doing the experiments, whereas the discussion telling what the results of the experiment have to say about the bigger question. You can imagine that you explain to results the result in the paper to a lab mate who looks confused and asks you, you explain to, you tell her the result, and then she say, sure, but so what? Why was it so cool or interesting? So your response to your lab mate should be similar to the content in the discussion. So that is how you should. The way you respond to your lab mate, you explain to lab mate, that is how you're going to write in your discussion. So relate your results to existing results. So what you can do is that you cite previous results in your field, okay, in the introduction, and then now you have laid your results. You should tell whether your results agree or disagree with previous work and why. Okay, so a strong discussion section tells the main conclusion and then tells how the paper result contribute to answering the big question posed in the introduction. The discussion should explain why and how the work agrees or disagrees with other work or similar work, and also explains how the limitation of this study. You see, so your research or your work, your study have some limitation also. So this also you should discuss the limitation of your work and tell how extension of this paper results will be useful for answering the big question. Okay, if you want to look, this is the structure for discussion. You have the summary of the main conclusion. You compare it with results of other studies. And then you mention the scientific or engineering implication of the work. And then also you give some, you discuss the limitation in the scope. And then some statement for looking forward, means like what's next. Okay. So I quote the word by Susan Jacobs. She said that the discussion is your opportunity to demonstrate thoughtfulness about your work by highlighting the major implications and enumerating key things you don't yet know and laying out the future work needed. The journal conclusion. Now in the conclusion section is very important. And of course, even though it's short, it's not hard. It's not easy to end things, right? So in order for you to conclude your journal article, first you remind the reader why the article was written, and then you must reprise the argument, but do not repeat. Okay, do not repeat your argument there. And then your conclusion must deal with the so what and what now what question, and the conclusion also must avoid cliche. So for more information, you can visit this website. Okay. So the conclusion is the last yet not the easiest part of the research paper. So this is from a different website. You restate your topic briefly and explain what is important, and then make sure your conclusion is concise and clear. Then you restate your thesis statement. You summarize main points of your paper. Discuss the significance of your findings and discuss the future of your subject. So this, based on the Essay Lab, this website, they give you some of the avoid common mistakes when writing a conclusion. So it's recommended for you not to start your conclusion with the word in conclusion or in summary. Alright. Make sure your thesis is stated not only in the conclusion but also in the introduction. Don't present any new arguments or details in your conclusion. Don't change the tone of your paper. Do not apologize. And never use the first person at all. Okay. So throughout the paper, you must use the third person sentence. So this is the accepted conclusion from a journal paper. Okay, what I want to highlight is the last sentence is discussing the future of the subject. So observe the last sentence. So it has there. Okay, remind again the reader. The first line is reminding the reader what it's all about. And then the authors highlight the main findings. Okay, this is another conclusion from another paper. Okay, so it starts with the work. The present work outlines the frame, reminding the reader what they have done, and also they give here the last sentence. You might want to look at the last sentence and then you can adapt it into your work. This is another conclusion in the scene that they have this. The proposed method can accurately label, and the one that I highlighted in yellow, that is giving you the findings, highlighting the findings. Okay. This is another example which of conclusion. Okay, so it discusses the second last sentence in the green, discusses the importance of the current study, and also it gives you the future direction, telling the future direction of the research. So this also you might want to consider to include it in your. Now this is another one, another example of conclusion from a journal. Say that the study highlight the success, and also there's some scholars who like to make their paper alive, making the paper alive by telling that the future work and will be reported immediately, something like that, or will be reported in the near future. Okay, by doing this, so the readers, they are reading the current paper and they will wait for the next article. Okay, so by putting this sentence, okay, the readers might want to wait. They're looking forward to see the next article. So this is one of the way to make the paper alive. That means it will be like continuation of the papers, right? Your articles. Okay. Okay. This is an example of writing to highlight novelty. The sentence in yellow. This is a first to date example. So when you put there the first to date, that's showing the highlighting the novelty. That means no one has done it before, and also it's telling you the potential target, the potential application, and also this idea said the potential of this. That means the way the conclusion is written here is actually to highlight the novelty, potential application, and future direction. Okay, you may look at this and relate it. Okay, so for the conclusion part, you may ask yourself whether the conclusion relate to the objective, and then you might ask research objective achieved. Is the main findings highlight in the conclusion? Is your conclusion conclusive? Because sometimes if you don't put it nicely, your conclusion is not conclusive. If you put it, the last sentence is still a results, then the whole paper will, then when people read it, is not conclusive. So it's good for you to make sure that the sentences you use in the conclusion is conclusive. Make your conclusion or your work conclusive, and then you look whether it's necessary or not to recommend for future work or not, and also as we just saw just now, whether you want to make your paper, your article alive or not. Now let's look. This is the guide articles. Now according to JAP's bulletin, he said that you start with a draft. Draft the title in the beginning. Meanwhile, you just write whatever you have down in Word. You write the methodology, you write the discussion, you write everything else. But in mind, you have the draft title. And once you complete the manuscript, you finalize the title. Okay. So this strategy may help to maintain focus due to the initial title. Since you have the title in your mind, then whenever you write, you will maintain the focus. Because you know the title, so whatever you write will be aligned to that title. And finally, you improve the title after manuscript is complete. So this is a good strategy for writing a good title. Choose what type you want to use. So you may use the title using the type declarative titles, or you might want to put the descriptive titles, or you want to make your title become interrogative titles. Start with questions, something like that. Now, how to fill in a title according to APA? Make it simple. Keep simple and concise statement. Avoid titles that are too long, as recommended by APA, only up to no more than 12 words. You may use a colon, for example, like this title, brain activation during possession of face like simulate, semicolon, and then fMRI study. But make it short, don't put that additional information too long. Do not use acronyms in the title without spelling them out. Sometimes readers who are not familiar with their meaning may simply skip your article even though it's relevant to their research. So make sure you use the right words for the title. And then irony, puss and humor may help to attract more readers, but as research done by Hartley, this kind of title, humorous title, will appear less often in the search results. So if you want to keep that title, the risk is that when people do search in the website, your title will be less. So these are the example of the titles. Usually the titles of a research article is more specific compared to your thesis, because your thesis has a lot of work, so it becomes more generalized, and in order for you to maintain the number of words, you cannot put every words in your thesis, the keywords. But for a journal article, you may, because the work is quite specific. For example, like these titles. International Journal of Material Mechanics and Manufacturing. In the website, they also provide some common mistakes. So if you have time, you can look at this, some common mistakes in preparing your journal article. For example, the word data, the first one is plural, not singular. And then some people they use words. You can look. You can have a look at this to look at some common mistakes that people do. Other than that, there's a given written by Bert Blocken, the 10 tips for writing a truly terrible journal article. So these are the 10. So you can take the lazy route and plagiarize, omit. So if you want to come up a truly terrible journal article, then you may follow these tips. So you can, if you need more information, you can go to these websites. Other available sources, this is about writing scientific manuscript, most common mistakes. You can look at these websites. If you have time, you can venture into this website. Journal authorship, how to put the names, the name of the authors. So Elsevier, referring to International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, they have a guide here. Put a guide. There are 4 criteria for the authors. The first one, substantial contribution, and then have done a critical work for important intellectual content. Those who have done critical work means in terms of revising or drafting the work, and all authors should give the final approval for publication. And number 4, agree to accountable for all aspects. That means if you are the main authors or the co-authors or the authors of the paper should take the responsibility of the papers. So these are the guide and the 4 main criteria given by Elsevier in order for you to put the name of the authors. Those who do not need Those who have contributed but do not fulfill these 4 criteria, then they should be acknowledged in the acknowledgement. Okay, this is an example, or this is the description of the acknowledgement. Okay, uh, all right. So the difference between authorship and acknowledge, right? So the first is authorship. Those who have participated in certain substantive aspect but do not fulfill the 4 criteria just now, they should be recognized in the acknowledged sentence. You may refer to the Elsevier publishing. Okay. To make it clear, some of the journal, for example, Archive of Budo, you have to clearly state what are the contribution of each of the author. So they've given you A, B, C, D, E. So after the name, right, you put there whether the contribution is in terms of study design, data collection, statistical analysis, manuscript preparation, or funds collection. So this journal is very clear to show the contribution of all authors. Okay, so acknowledgement in the research article is very important because for FRGS is the key performance indicator, the KPI for FRGS. So you have, okay, for example, if you get the FRGS grant, you are required to publish 3 Scopus Index journal. So once you publish the article, okay, make sure you have the acknowledgement there. So because based on this acknowledgement, then you can see the example here. It shows that this paper belongs to that grant. From that grant, this paper, the work has been done and the paper is published. So this is actually a KPI for them. So this is very important for you to acknowledge the source of funding, especially for grants. Okay, you may also want to refer to the publishing ethics because Elsevier have put publishing ethics there. There's a website here. The duties of the authors. So you can see in general the duty of the authors. These are the duty of the authors. So you have to follow the reporting standards. Okay, it might be originality, confidentiality, okay, image integrity. So for more information, you can go to the Elsevier website. What we have learned before just now. So again, this is the main component. If you look main component, now before that, the question is which section to complete first. Based on my experience, I will ask my students to write the methodology first. Okay, because they have done the work, they got the results, and make sure that write while doing your experiments or you forget. Okay, do not forget until you have done all the experiments, and then when you want to write the thesis or your article, then only you want to write, you forget. So make sure you note down, or it's good that in the day time you did the experiment, and the afternoon or at the night you write what you have done the experiments. And then you start with the chapter methodology and the results, because you have the results, moreover it's aligned to the methodology. And then you go to your introduction, you complete your introduction, and then you complete your conclusion, and then you complete your abstract, and after that you give your research title. So how to write this is very important, that you read and read and read. Look at as many journal articles as possible to make it. So this is very important also for you to maintain the alignment of your article. Make sure the methodology, the output, the results, the objective, the review, all are aligned. Make sure they are aligned. Okay. And then tips. Okay, start writing as soon as possible. Even though you are carrying out your sample preparation experiment, make sure you write all the steps right away. So do not delay or you will miss the important details. If you wait, you're afraid that you miss the important details. And then read. Look and observe as many journal articles as possible. Look and observe many journal articles as possible which are related to your work. And then make sure that your references are from high impact journals. Okay, it's either, when you write article, it's either from thesis to paper or paper to thesis, right? Either you completed your thesis and then you start extracting your thesis into a few papers and summarizing it, making papers, or you write your papers which later on Okay, it will help you in writing your thesis. You expand your papers and it will become your thesis. So if you want to send your manuscript, you can send it for English editing and proofreading. For information, we have our in-house in-car resident reviewers, or you can attend general writing workshops, and also at the Academy Pengajian Bahasa Services, you can look for these services. And you should differentiate what's the difference between journal, conferences, and thesis. First is the length. I would say that conference paper is usually a short paper up to 5 pages. Journal will be longer, 4,000 words up to 5,000, 6,000 words. Now, this is a very lengthy document. You have to write up to 20,000 words for masters or 30,000 words for PhD for the science SNT students. So you have to acknowledge. And then the review process also for journal, it can take up to 1 to 2 months. Okay, to publish a journal article, sometimes it takes 1 year, 2 years, it can go to and back. But conference, actually, the review process is quite shorter, okay, because it's not as comprehensive as journal. And for thesis also, the examiner is allowed to evaluate your thesis 1 to 2 years. So that is the difference in terms of the content and the novelty and the amount of work that you need for writing of this. But in terms of the sentences, basically it's the same. If you write for the methodology, result for discussion, the way it turn, the sentence structure should be there. So this is the end of part 4, writing a research article. And don't forget to watch part 5, writing a thesis. So if you have any question, you may contact me based on. So with that, thank you for watching. All the best.